This is AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, an almost regularly scheduled open discussion on audio and video in higher education. We'll sound off about our most brilliant ideas, our dumbest mistakes, and everything in between. And because this conversation will almost certainly go off the rails at some point, we'll end up covering just about everything else. And now, the AV SuperFriends. For January 24th, 2025. Yes, that's right. It's the right year, 2025. It's the best-sounding podcast, usually, in higher ed. This is the AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, episode number 102. 2 bonus ones. We were going to quit. We didn't.
That's now with added slapback.
Now with added effects.
We're going to live triage this one.
So, broadcasting live across 4 time zones from coast to coast, easternmost to westernmost, northernmost to southernmost, gate post to hitching post. I'm your local host who can boast the most milquetoast and utmost, and a little bit of slapback. I'm Chris Decker. Time for another Friday afternoon podcast adventure, and let's say hello to the assembled panel of AV SuperFriends. Going to be one of those shows. Mm-hmm. So, let's see with this one. So, let's say hello to a senior assurance facilitator from Kansas City, Jamie Reinhardt.
I can't. I just move on.
All right, fine. Also joined by a global tactics executive from Corvallis, Oregon, Mark Kolozinski.
We're going to get our arms around this at some point, and we'll figure this out. Not sure when or how, but bear with us.
Well, and to help with that, how about a human optimization officer from Greensboro, North Carolina? Say hello to Larry Darling.
If we haven't figured it out after the 100th episode, it's not going to happen.
Okay. Also joined by our Vice President for Creative Strategies from Bowling Green, Kentucky, Mr. Justin Rexing.
How's this for creative?
Oh.
Good. You got it. You're in.
You want to stay back on that thing.
You're in.
And finally joined by special guest, a district identity synergist from an undisclosed desert location, Mr. Colin Birney.
Thank you. Glad to be here, calling in from the bunker.
Your Apocalypse bunker is quite nicely appointed.
Yeah.
Oh,
Larry looks like he's in a bunker.
I am in a bunker.
Pretty sure. Larry, do you have windows in that office?
No.
He's underground.
I have 0 windows, and I have a brick wall that radiates the cold air from outside because it's like 13 degrees out there today.
Are your purge shutters closed today, or are they open?
Now that you mentioned it's brick, all 100 shows in, and I always thought that was just like blinds back there. Now it's actually brick. I was like, oh, shit, it is brick.
It's a brick wall.
Oh,
is
well, sorry.
Is that conduit like traversing left to right? What is that?
Oh, no, it's here. Let me move my camera.
It's
going to be
structural.
Yeah,
it's the structure.
It's the stretching lines. Larry, you're going to want to just cut those.
Yeah, I thought about it at times.
Just loose in the middle, everything just gets a little interesting.
Justin, how you doing, buddy?
Upstairs becomes downstairs.
How's your bunker?
Check 1, 2.
Nope. Not well. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Nope. There you go. Yeah.
Is that better?
Get in that mic.
Better, but
okay.
Don't
So my
shout
gain
into the
actually
mic.
turned down now.
Yeah, you're good.
We're not sure what's happening.
So if I do this, then that becomes that,
More.
and that's like.
Yeah. Stop. Just stop.
Mucho better.
Back that sucker up.
Okay.
It was fine, and then you started turning
you're
up.
good. Just don't touch it.
I didn't touch anything.
You're touching
not.
things now.
Yeah. Okay.
I have to touch all this shit because nothing's working.
Don't move. Don't talk any softer or any louder than you are right now. Just modulate yourself for the rest of the show.
We'll capture all that pre-show and release that too. So
yeah, it was a special treat for everybody because you've all heard us talk about this. We really wanted you all to experience it firsthand. You're welcome.
I think you all are applying like a new preset every time I load my computer.
I sneak in.
Yes.
Yeah.
At night.
Well, we are going to talk
he'll
about
never
remote
see
support and things today. So,
Yeah, so to that,
That's why.
on today's show, we're going to discuss managed service providers with the king of managed service providers and some of our goofy colloquial names we use for campus spaces and have to figure out where the heck those actually are.
Wait, I don't
But
use any of
first,
those.
let's do some housekeeping.
Record.
So if you're listening to this as recorded MP3, we do stream live on Fridays at about 3:30 Eastern. We're a bit early today because we were doing some audio testing and figured we'd share that with you.
I don't call that testing.
We're doing some live audio setup.
How do you sound different every time you talk?
That was on
Howard's
purpose.
doing that. So
He's good at it.
you can join us live on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Blue Sky, etc. And sometimes we'll take your calls, which we're not doing today because I didn't start that application again.
Again.
I'll figure it out one of these days. If you can't join us live, we still want you to connect with us on the socials. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Blue Sky, etc. to keep up with the latest updates and news and all that fun stuff. And please don't forget to spread the word. Please share this podcast with your friends, enemies, perfect strangers. If you could stop people at the airport and keep that plane from taking off until everybody subscribes to this podcast, that would be fantastic. If you would like to support the show, please consider donations. Your contributions help keep us bringing you the honest content you love to hate. And you can find the donation link in the description of this very episode or on our website somewhere. I don't know exactly where it is.
Thank you again for all that have done
and for,
in the past.
For those of you who do donate to get stuff off my Visa card, that's fantastic. So please keep doing that. And finally, when you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever the heck you are, please go in and rate and review us because that tricks the algorithms into thinking this is actually a worthwhile show, moves it to the top, and more people will see it. So that's all fun stuff.
We're gaming it. Eventually,
it's all a game. I didn't paste the link for the news in here, so you guys are all out of sorts.
We're
doing it live today.
I'm just going to make it up because no one came with anything else. So
I'm afraid to click on
now you've waited for it all week, and Justin is here complete with his microphone to share with us. Let's do the news.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah.
Sounds fine when he sings along.
Yeah,
that's when my setup.
Sounds great.
That's when my setup worked.
And then you touched it.
All right.
Didn't change it.
$1 billion in equipment, and you.
I don't have.
Is this really where all those donations are going to? Buying?
I'm just getting new interfaces every time y'all send us money. I'm just buying a new interface. So like there goes another $50.
Even before we went live, Colin was discussing, we keep finding these weird adapters that seem to work, but they're like single use. And so Justin has interfaces that are single use.
Single use.
Uses it, toss. So
nice.
All right, so today's news comes from AV Interactive, and it is clearly a semi-press release news release trying to get out in front of ISE, which is fine because there's going to be a ton of it in a week or so. But it is interesting, and it harkens back to a prototype we all saw from LG 2017, 16, somewhere in there. So from AV Interactive, link is in the show notes, and the headline is PrimeView launches the world's first LED roll-up display. Which is exactly what it sounds like. It's an LED that rolls up into the wall or into the ceiling.
Is it the first though?
I don't know if it's the first, but
we've seen those things roll up before in someone's hand.
I have seen rental and staging ones that you can set up and they kind of roll back into a case. But I think this is more of like I don't know, what would you call it? An installation, a permanently installed version.
Yeah, kind of. But it's like blocks that roll up, kind of a thing.
It replaces the projector screen, so you already have that big carve out in your ceiling. You can shove that in.
It shouldn't be in your ceiling.
Sounds like a good way to lose $200,000. It's kind of like the swimming pool ones that went below the deck and would come up, and you're like, "Oh, it's awesome!" until it fills with water.
Is it automatic, or is this man? You have to pull this thing down.
It has a spring. You pull on it.
You get one of those broomsticks, and then you shove it up into this latch, and
it comes falling down.
Just falls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, cool. Then they did it right. They deployed it the exact same way it should have been done.
I don't know how you get it back up, though. It's
a trick you can only do once.
One use. You throw it away.
Something tells me this won't be in any of our orders anytime in the next decade.
Out in your standard classroom.
I don't know. Well, it's definitely a curious piece here, but I just don't know.
Rich people problems.
I wouldn't say it's not a prototype, but it is a one-off sort of product. LG had a rollable OLED a number of years ago. Same sort of thing. It was more of a technology demonstrator. This one, literally what they're doing is taking those all-in-one LED displays, and they're doing it correctly. They're taking that, they're basically segmenting the rear panel, so instead of it being rigid, it's rigid in like little 3-inch sections, and then it chunks around itself, probably in a pretty sizable enclosure. I've not been able to find that out.
They just glued LEDs to one of those storefront rollers and called it a day.
I mean, in a classroom environment, are we thinking about this wrong? Should we not be looking for roll-up whiteboards here? Like LED on the front and the whiteboard rolls up out of the way?
Because they're deployed in every room.
People mark on them. Yes, exactly. But this seems like a lot of engineering to solve something that if we just flipped the paradigm and the front of the wall was all LED and the whiteboards moved, wouldn't we be at a lot less risk?
Jamie, what was the space we did at Union Station that you had to move the displays?
We've seen those
rails
on boards and stuff like that. Yeah,
I had it rigged up with one of the hose things that would come in a car wash, so that because it turned a corner.
Wait, what?
Whoa, back up. Oh, you're talking about that had the spring hose thing on it?
Because you needed it to come out of a central point, and then it had to make a radius on a barn door effect. And so you couldn't just have the cable, loop down. So it came out just like you would in the old-fashioned car wash, where you put quarters in and you walk around your car.
They had a big arm roll pivot.
That's my goodness.
Yeah, it was a great idea that didn't work.
But it was moving.
We still have those in Kentucky, by the way.
But it didn't.
You have old-fashioned car washes?
Yeah, you still can do that. It's called a manual.
You can wash your car for $2 and a quarter.
Market you're in. Yeah. All right, so everybody's in on these. We're all getting a baker's dozen of these bad boys. Is that what I heard?
Colin's sitting in front of his right now. He's just
right? Yeah, I'm gonna change it in an instant here.
No, I really cameras in the middle of his.
I thought OLED was gonna be the roll up. Like I really did. Like we're doing foldable phones, and I don't know why that's not the go-to, and they're instead slicing up what looks like DV LEDs into this. It's a little weird to me, and I feel like given how many walls I've had to deal with alignments, like that slight little alignment, and you're having to realign it every time it goes on. It's like I don't see how that's going to look good after.
Is this whole thing really just about them doing these long narrow strips with the bevel on the edge? Is that really the technology this is?
I think it's more of it's a general technology demonstrator.
Yeah, it's just like look, if you put this bevel, you can roll this thing up.
It's cool.
Because it's the world's first. So we're going to find out.
It is cool, and we're talking about it. So it worked.
It worked.
It worked.
Billions of dollars in development paid off right now.
We will take you.
They're going to sell
$1 million. We'll put you on here.
Sell one of them because of us.
I hope. Hopefully, we'll take one. Ship it to us. We will use it.
Yeah, I guess I could replace this thing behind me with one. That's fine. So. I will say, as a concept, I think this is really slick to say, like, the projection screen completely get out of the way. I don't have to have a projector in the room. It's no worry about brightness or any of that stuff. But I do have concerns about the long-term viability. I certainly wouldn't want to deploy these. Like, I'm building a brand new building. I'm going to put them in every classroom. Maybe in an event center or someplace where, hey, when that thing invariably has a problem with it or something, it's not shutting down classes.
Would you leave the projection screen behind it with the projector up just in case?
I would put the projection screen in front of it as a protective coating.
Exactly.
So I'm more curious about that.
Like mounting this thing. How much do these things actually weigh? Like
they weigh, yes.
That's a lot of weight to have.
To be determined.
Yeah.
Well, Larry, let's look it up.
There's probably a spec sheet.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got the spec sheet
look how fast.
Wow.
Colin, how many
Fast
kgs
Colin.
is this thing?
Can you do the metric
carry
conversion?
this whole show here? Power
Needs some.
Power. Force provide. 200 amps of 440.
It runs on 24 volt DC. Total display weight is 242 pounds for the 100 inches.
Oh, good, great.
291 for the 120 inches.
That's kind of what I was assuming.
Yeah, I don't think any of you are going to be integrating this thing anytime soon.
Well, it's because I was telling all you guys I have those Dells I was taking off the wall that weigh 281 pounds, and you can move them, but they are a freaking tank that requires 3 men and a small pony.
You're supposed to build around those, Chris.
Yes, those are structural.
It's a good thing you're in Wyoming. You got ponies coming out your rear over there.
Yeah, you can't. This doesn't solve the issue of trying to get those 100+ inch TVs like Tetris into a freight elevator or something like that. I mean, we've had to like close off streets to lift them in through windows.
I don't
Have you done like
and this doesn't. This is no better.
The windows, yeah, it's the best thing.
No,
yeah, it's amazing.
Never do that because how are you going to support
I've done
that?
like 6 at a shot. Yeah,
It's like if I can't get it in to the second floor after the building's done, I'm not going to spec that.
We had one of the companies I worked for had a rear projection room in their boardroom. It was 140 inches, Stewart glass, and they took 2 of them in because they had to shut the street down. And before the building opened, one of the cleaning people thought the screen looked really filmy, and I was amazed. It was crystal clear. It was incredible. You could see straight into the projection room. And then we had to figure out how to move this sheet of glass that was put about 6 feet behind the projector rig up to the front, and that was we probably should have gone out the building and back in again, given how bad it was.
Demoed it up,
right?
Over.
He was like, destroy it, start over.
We did the same. Brought in those giant pieces of glass, They had cut special holes in the wall, and then within 3 weeks, somebody Sharpied the entire front side of it.
There you go. In the library? I remember
when
that.
You cleaned it, when you cleaned it off, it cut just enough of the coating to make it look horrible.
You're stuck with it.
Stuart recoded it, which was nice. So we did have a spare again, but they had to come in and do a whole thing. And
Stuart himself came out and did it. Nice.
He did. Yeah, that's how high priority we were.
Good guy.
Flew out right then. We actually, not joking, had the same question with a much more pedestrian, like an 87-inch or 86-inch interactive display that somebody, when you enter the room, the sunlight hits it just right. You can see every fingerprint, smudge, whatever. And it's interactive, so that's the whole point. And all these questions about how do we clean it. And I was like, whoa. Before you guys run down there with your freaking Windex.
Brown.
It's interactive. So just, and it was, just microfiber and whatnot, keeping it. But I keep pointing out, it's an interactive display. It's going to look like that as soon as you're done. So cool it. But yeah, it's a very
We don't have grease on our fingers, Chris. So that's
a
not
Wyoming
thing. It's from the other people using it. Yeah.
Too much beef.
It was weird.
It's all the other classes that are using it.
It's not our department. It's that department.
Exactly.
Coming in here with their greasy mitts, just touching things.
Art students.
Yes. All right.
Well, anyway, so I'm sure we'll hear about similar things to this. And again, I just brought it up because of the concept. And I think we all agree that this is kind of cool from a technical perspective.
Yeah.
Viability, probably not so much. But
it moves. It'll break on that end.
I would like to see one in use. And where's that mean time between failure of mean time before failure of 200,000 lifts it did or whatever. So
yeah.
I will volunteer. If Prime View would like to send me one, I will do that every day, all day.
Just pull it down. That's one.
I want the manual one, the cheaper one, and then the spring at the bottom and let it go.
Like those.
I do hope there's some room there where it's just rolling and unrolling and has been for the past 6 months.
I would assume they've done that.
You need those ones that, those doors in the mall that close the stores, those big, heavy chain motor things.
The roll-down doors.
That's what,
turn the key.
Just install it on that.
Be nice. All right. Well,
okay, well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back talk about managed service providers, and Colin's going to fill us in on all that stuff and why he's here and what he's doing to talk about, and kind of our experiences with those, all from the other side, the client side of that. And
there's a bunch of stuff in here we're going to talk about. Yeah.
We've got some thoughts and need some information, so
we need help.
Before that,
I'm here for answers.
Let's take a quick break and enjoy this little ditty. Which one is this? Oh, it's this one.
Get ready to plug in and rock out at Widget Fest, the ultimate celebration of audiovisual innovation. For 3 electrifying days, the biggest names in commercial presentation electronics take the stage and showcase the latest and greatest in adapters and widgets. Widget Fest! Experience cutting-edge tech, hands-on demos, and exclusive product launches all in one place. Connect with fellow enthusiasts, enjoy great food, and be part of the future of AV technology. Widget Fest! Tickets are selling fast, so don't miss out. Widget Fest, the ultimate celebration of adapters and widgets, coming soon to a venue near you. Widget Fest! Widget Fest!
We never really talk about when Widget Fest is.
There was a problem with that on the other version.
There was a problem because it was
specifically
a very
announces a date.
Yes. And we got overrun with people who wanted tickets, and it sold out.
February 29th, every third year.
Alternate.
Dang it, that means every 4 years it actually happens. Or 12 years.
At some point, those are going to line up, damn it.
Every 12 years it happens.
Look, I think you can handle that kind of planning period.
We've got 12 years to build up to it. We can do it.
Be a lot of widgets in that time.
All right. So, Colin, for those of you who don't know, you want to give us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and your kind of unique role within the AV industry, and kind of how this can help us wrangle some of the nonsense, some of our projects, some of our support needs, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So I have a company called AV MSP, which clearly means I'm the first. So I get to claim world's first AV MSP.
Perfect.
Just like the roll-up screen.
Congratulations.
And I know. I was very excited to find that this was a completely untapped market. But what we do is we provide managed services. We're sort of a tier 2 desk. We help augment internal staffs. We help augment integrators who don't have a help desk. We help provide some much needed tech expert on creating sort of a nice customer experience. Like we do the nice little portals and monitoring, and then we have a pretty heavy back end that we handle as well. So we're kind of taking a lot off the plate. We kind of, instead of being like consultants kind of try to come from the top down, we kind of try to come from the bottom up and say, hey, what do you have to do a lot of often and need off your plate? And we take sort of the like big repeatable tasks and heavy work and things like sorting. Monitoring is a big one because like sorting through all that junk is tedious and will consume your life. So I mean, most data's junk, and so we try to find sanity and reason in the midst of it. But yeah, we're trying to sort of change the model from most places being a break fix shop or a body shop into saying, hey, we provide services. How we provide them isn't really up to the customer. It's just, are we providing it or not? And are we providing it under the terms that we said? So we're very contract heavy. We kind of have to be in these sort of arrangements, and that's what we're doing. And it's nice because when you put boundaries in place, we have much better working relationships than the usual thing where AV people really want to do everything and wear themselves out and create expectations that are unreasonable. If we all have reasonable expectations, we can all do our jobs and go home at the end of the day and not feel frustrated or overworked or stressed. At least that's the idea.
So Colin, my first question is, why do you think more integrators don't do what you do to get more money?
It's hard.
Oh, is it though?
Like money.
Is it harder than integration? Because there's so much complexity to that. I think it's just a realization problem.
I don't know that it's harder. I think it's just skill set that just doesn't exist. And we have a problem within the industry where we take people that are doing one role and we shove them into another. We took a bunch of people who were, install leads and said, hey, now you're a project manager. And now we have a lot of project managers who don't have a firm background in how to do it. And I think it's the same thing here. You take people that have been rolling around in a van putting out fires, and they say, okay, now you're going to do help desk. And so they have to start completely from scratch, learning how to configure a ticketing system, how SLAs work, how all of this ties in, what best practices are. And it's a full knowledge set. It's a completely different job than anyone really does in the industry now.
And I think it's interesting because when you kind of went through that intro, I thought of like a lot of different scenarios that popped up. And after I thought about those scenarios, how tall do I need to be to ride this ride? Became my question. Because is this something that like everybody's just like, let's just do this? Or is there what's prerequisites for success here? Like what's going on? Because when you manage service, there's probably people who are like, I don't even know what the hell that is. How would I recognize a managed service or not? What's going on there?
I mean, at its core, managed service is just you're buying the expertise to keep some sort of service maintained, running, and future-proofed. And the change that brings in is that it allows you to, like I said, kind of have clear goals around what you want. Like if you just want, if you say, hey, this is where Xerox runs on. They do managed services around printers. And if you want your printers to be running, you sign a managed service with them. They don't tell you where their people are, how they get it done. It doesn't really matter.
Never know.
You never know. They work. They're filled with toner and paper, and that's it. And so we're trying to, that's the difference is if you're saying, hey, do you want your AV spaces to run? Yes. That's where it starts, but you have to be able to have those boundaries in place around it. And I think, to play in this, I don't think it has to be much. I think the biggest thing that I run into is that it's sort of you have this circular problem where you're like, well, I need people to run service in order to sell a service, and I don't have any money to go there. And the easiest thing to do if you're on the selling side is to just tell all of your customers, say, hey, you're a customer if you're paying me monthly or yearly for support, even if it's just to keep the lights on, even if you don't buy anything and you just want to be able to call me from time to time, I still need some money to keep the desk staffed and the phone on and the system up and running. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. They don't want to alienate customers, but really if someone buys from you every 3 to 5 years, are they your customer? Like if I'm not talking to someone daily or weekly, I can't rely on them for future projections. But if I'm talking to them daily, they're going to be a longer term partner for integration, even if service isn't your real goal.
So can we talk about some of like what is it like the stuff you're like, what are you interacting with day in and day out? I want to talk about like what we have people, you're doing these things and you're providing service, but how are you going about that process? Like what are we doing?
So the way we pitch ourselves, like if you're familiar with sort of the IT structure, we pitch ourselves as a tier 2 desk. Okay. So we're a pocket of expertise that sits up above something else. So usually most customers have at least some sort of technical staff or a technical person. We don't really like to talk directly to end users, not because they're not lovely.
Oh, so you actually don't get...
I mean, who does?
Weird. That's like all of us on this call. You just nailed us.
Right. And that's the thing is like you create a structure and you say, hey, the rules of this engagement are you take first call and we take second call. Now where we do react
you're
first.
You're escalating up or no?
We are an escalation. So same thing with Xerox. Like if you have a problem with a printer, you don't call Xerox directly. You call your help desk and some person trundles around and hammers on it and then they escalate to their tier 2. And we're kind of the same way. It's like if you've already done the thing of, hey, is it plugged into the right slot on your computer?
We've burned through the 15 layers of screen script. We're past that. Like something's physically going on here.
The 10-minute fix is done. The other place where we skip that line is from a monitoring perspective. So if I see something went down,
here we go.
Then I take action without really telling you. Usually what we do is we'll take the first swing at things for about 5 to 10 minutes. If that doesn't resolve it, then we go into notification mode and we tell our customer, hey, I see, if we have access to scheduling, like the more knowledge is more power and enables to do more. If we have access to scheduling, we look in the room and we see if someone's in there and we reach out and say, hey, you may want to consider, going home for the day or finding another room or something
what you're trying
like
to do
that.
is not going to work. Yeah.
Like the TV's got a hole in it. You're not having a meeting today. And then from there, it's any number of paths. I mean, honestly, anymore, unless there's a physical failure of hardware, a reboot solves almost everything. And that's sort of our first step with a lot of customers to say, hey, get me anything. Get me a Watt box so I can reboot it. Because, the biggest thing is like everything, we were looking at this product, the LED, it runs on DC. And those DC power supplies have a little computer in them and they like to have a freak out every now and then and just stop working. The only thing that brings them back is a voltage drop and back up. Right. So honestly, like 95% of issues can be resolved with a reboot. The other 5%, maybe there's a little bit extra. And then that like very, very small number is actually, I need to get someone to the site to pull it off the wall or put it in a box and get a new one.
You all, or that be on-site people going on site to remove something? So, it depends on the SLA.
It depends on the kind of engagement. So if we're engaged with an integrator, that's generally where their responsibility begins. We say, hey, we'll work this ticket through its full life cycle, but at some point I'm going to call you to roll a truck. And based on the customer agreement, it's either billable or included, and you go to site. We have some customers where they have technical people on site and they're willing to go and, crawl under a table or do something like that. And there's, this whole thing of like every, sort of criticism that every customer thinks they're unique. It's like, they are. To a certain extent, like we
have their own unique social security number. I get it.
Like they're all unique. Like they all have things, and it's like if it's something that I can customize for you without creating a huge burden for me, I always customize. Like our system, every customer has a different looking portal. They have logos, they have colors, they have services they can click on, they have forms, workflows.
I mean, all the IT SLAs, problems are all the same problems. Fundamentally, that's kind of the same thing. And I think you hit on a couple things. One, like the Wattbox model, right? Where it just reboot the thing. I think around this horn here, we all have taken great strides to have remote and IP capable power control in all of our builds. Like Justin, don't jump on me here, but anyway, we've made that integration for like our typical.
Was not a happy face.
I didn't say anything.
No, that's fine. But then, I think that was how they even started as a company. They were all like, that was part of their advertising. They're like, hey, are you sick of rolling trucks and people to turn things on and off? And
100%.
That was it. That was what they did, right? And they did some clever, like, oh, we can ping this, and blah, blah, blah. And then we can auto do some things, do some automation on the back end. That's all well and good. And I think that a lot of people are doing that now. But then you also mentioned online, offline status.
Yes.
Because anymore, every manufacturer has a cloud-enabled portal service thingamawidget of the month that's connected to some AWS platform or whatever it may be for monitoring all their stuff. Are you leveraging that, or do you have your own home-baked build thing? And then I want to get into the details of that data exchange.
Well, he bought a Raspberry Pi.
Okay, fair enough.
See, I hope it's a stack of them and they all monitor each other. It's just
He's got his Beagle bone and he's ready to go.
Yeah, it's just here we go. Pinging away.
It's an old Intel Nook.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, and that's that game of data. Whenever someone asks about data, I say, "What are you going to do with it?" Right? Do I need to know what input on a TV has been used, what percentage of the time? Maybe. But you've got to give me a really good use case for me to even store that information, much less go about collecting it. And to me, it's we start with, is it alive? Can I ping it or not? And there's a million platforms for that. You can use, I use DigitalOcean for my hosting. They have a Zabbix droplet. I can spin up a Zabbix environment in under 2 minutes. And then just start throwing agents all over the place, and we're good to go. It's open source. It's free. Domots is another one that folks like.
But there's a lot built on top of Domots. I think you see a lot of service out there rolling out on top of that Domots.
Yeah, and they're smart. They understand that, Zabbix is fun if you like mucking around in interfaces and learning. If you like a learning curve like this, then great, head on in. Domots makes it so the learning curve is much simpler. The integrations are simpler. Integration between my ticketing system and there, it's, throw in an API key and we're done. But to that extent, it's what will we do with that information? Because I think that the hierarchy of where information comes from is, up-down status to me is more of a health symptom. If something happens, then I'll go back and look and say, what's this thing been doing? If something's critical, if I have a device that's running, a codec, I want to know if that thing's on or off because it determines whether I can even have a call.
Get it.
Yeah, we'll get it. But a lot of the stuff, it's I don't know, there's weird, network glitches that happen. And, does it really matter if your DSP wasn't online for 5 minutes? Probably not. And that's what we get into, is trying to be a little bit more reasonable about how do we deal with data and where do we respond? Because customers are still the number one source of saying there's something wrong, because they're looking at it. They can tell if the experience is poor. They can tell if the sound is bad. We can't really do that. I know there's products that say that they can, and great, but it becomes a cost and time thing once again. They say, well, what's it worth to you? If I can tell if something's online and I can remotely reboot it, and that covers 90% of cases, we'll just deal with the other 10% as it happens. And, we have a good workflow and use good practices to make sure it works to resolution, and that's it.
How are you dealing with that? We can put a bunch of agents online, because that just screams network security, flags galore, no way in hell. That's compromising my research environment. What can you tease out some of that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, my big push last year was, what is managed services? Monitoring isn't managed services. AV as a service isn't managed services. My push for this year is AV is IoT, because IoT has a framework around it, and it has security. There's security protocols, and there's ways for doing it. I just had a blog post where I dug into the NSTIR standards about what manufacturers should be doing, and I think everything fails on being able to change your crypto method, being able to tell if it's in a secure state. So that is a big concern, and that's why power is kind of the first thing we start with. It's okay, let's start with one device that's trusted. I can get an IT group to trust it. Because I can send them one and let them hammer on it, and we can have, proof of previous deployments, and then we see what the appetite is from there. Because, I agree. It's I think there is an issue, you go back to those platforms that these things tie into. I've never vetted one of those.
Right. Do they have a HECVAT? Do you even know what a HECVAT is? When we start talking about these terms?
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's do they, I think the software becomes as much of a source of malicious activity as the devices. And so, when you're creating all those connections, I don't really want to do that. And that's why something like Zabbix or Domots is nice, because I can put it on a PC that's managed. and I'm not creating the same risk. And if there's an issue with that PC, it can be shut off, and I'm not getting, 50 different devices starting to go haywire on me.
And I think people are starting to think about that whole thing about like, okay, if I'm going to put an agent here, it's got to touch all my stuff, whether it's an island or whatever it is. And then I got to get this back out up to the cloud, right? And then what am I opening? What risk is that? And who the hell is that? Like, where is that? What machine is that even connected to? And how are they vetted? Or how are they aligned or not? And I think the industry's not talking about that. The industry is like, just buy the thing. We're going to do it for you. Just go ahead and run this thing in your firewall. Just go. Just put it on there.
It's got a port. Plug it in. Let's go.
Just put it on the cloud. Just
throw it on your network, and it's all good, right? And
give it clear internet access, and
just give it everything you want. No firewall. We need full activity. Let's go, right? And it's fine. And it's like, wait a minute. So there's this huge disconnect when you hear like people talking about, we're just going to use this, do these managed services, and just by the way, just plug this widget Trojan box into your network. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And how do we get through there? There's some big chasm that I can't quite cross.
I mean, a lot of good just up-down monitoring goes one way. If you don't want it to go two ways, it just goes one way. And there's not really a risk to letting outbound traffic just wander its way out. Yeah, someone might see the status of your devices or some IP addresses, but the risk of that data isn't as high, and it's also encrypted and it's trusted. We've had issues. I think there was a case. It was a couple of years ago. There was a university that tried to put in desk occupancy sensors in the computer science building.
Oh, they're hot desk.
Which was a terrible idea because they immediately pulled them out and said, we didn't agree to this. And they also found that all the data was being sent unencrypted. And you have to decide, it's like, okay, if someone's at a desk or not, is that really something I need to encrypt? I think it should be encrypted anyway. Why would you? Because then if you add what if you add a new feature? Now another piece of data is going out the door unencrypted.
Seats at this desk.
Yes. Is there? Yeah. Now there's a little camera on it and it's staring at you. So I think that's the biggest way. And that is a legitimate risk to say, okay, well, what do you want? And again, it's like, what's the value of that data? Knowing preemptively whether something is having a problem is great. It's really helpful. You can get alerts. In our system, all of the things that we are monitoring are tied to assets. If it goes down, there's an auto agent that opens a ticket. If it comes back up, the agent closes it. And so I can see a history of what's going on in there. And a lot of times I don't have to do anything. It's just kind of hanging out and collecting that information. That's useful to a certain perspective. We then get into the whole issue of, we're talking about, monitoring is one thing. Monitoring is not that difficult.
Right.
It's the management part that becomes difficult because that's where all of your risks open. You're like, that's why you get integrators that just leave behind a little secret PC with TeamViewer on it, and maybe don't tell the client, and then they have a little secret door in, and they just trust that nothing's going to happen. And that's something that's
till I find said secret
rips it out.
Yes. I mean, currently, right now, the most secure method is if we have a customer and they value security, they will credential us on their systems, because then they have control. We have devices that are managed, and we're going in, straight up, no problem.
Right. And I think you've clearly defined, like, this is not an AV thing. Like, this is a pure IT, like security, all that. And I think that's what makes it really odd, because a lot of people who are looking at these things are looking at it through the AV lens, right? And they're not even seeing like the whole IT, the security thing, the encryption piece, and like that whole recon piece of the equation. And that all seems like that's somebody else's gig.
AV was IT, though,
right? So
that's
it is.
not when it's when it's inconvenient. It's not
right,
and that's like.
Yeah, and I think to kind of jump on Mark's point there, I think a lot of manufacturers are not treating it as an IT thing.
No.
Like, they're all saying, hey, we can offer this solution to just talk to our boxes and not look at the bigger picture, not look at the security, not look at how this would actually integrate in most systems.
Yep. And there's a lot of manufacturers that I think are trying to get all this together. We've seen some acquisitions from large building management firms of AV corporations at large, and they're trying to make this a larger data story.
Yeah.
But I think there are some parts of the AV industry that are like resisting that. We want to just be AV purists, right? We are just knob and tube, push this through this.
I'm going to go solder that and terminate that cable. That's all I do.
Where we don't think about this data as part of the larger building system data or the motion data, and people just, the whole experience that's going on, and we want to keep it segregated. Like, oh no, I'm just going to stay on my little island of misfortune over here, right? And so it involves everybody moving in the same direction, and being mature and say, okay, what can we all get at the same table and have this conversation? And what is it that we want to be able to do with this stuff? Right. Are we going to preempt people moving around solving problems, or is it just for reporting out for reporting's sake? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, and I think a big part of this issue is that you talk about manufacturers, and that's a really it gets obfuscated. Like, there's a fun game you can play at Infocom where you go around the perimeter and you go to those little tiny tables, and there's a device sitting there, and then you go and you see how many other booths that device is sitting in with someone's logo screen printed on it, and that creates a huge problem because that OEM probably is testing and securing their device, but downstream or not. And we had a big issue that's still like, I'll still go on one of the IoT search engines and I'll see unsecured original screen sharing devices that have published fatalities, fatal flaws that have never been addressed because they're just not. And that's a common thing. Like the response is just, we'll throw it out instead of being, and that's the thing. It's there needs to be a maturity for manufacturers to say, hey, this is end of life. This is end of support. Some manufacturers are pretty good about that, but a lot of them are just like, they forget about it. Half of them, like when that researcher looked into the screen sharing devices, I think 14 of the companies that had sold them were out of business. They didn't even exist. So who are they going to talk to say, hey, have you patched these? It just doesn't exist.
The other half is like even the clients. Do clients have that same level of maturity when looking at the solution? It's like, I bought this thing back in 1995. I'm not buying a new one until it dies. It's like, it's on you.
And Colin, to some extent, we see that from monstrously huge AV manufacturers will do that because they need to get into like a semi-parallel market that they're not into yet. So they just go snatch up some other box, they rebrand it. They might update the firmware enough to put their logo or their name, or maybe there's that changes or something, or a certificate expires, whatever. But then they just roll it, and after a few years they abandon it. But those are still out
of business. So if you do that model, just stop it. Just stop making wireless appliances. Just don't do that.
Yeah, yes. I mean, if you want to OEM a dongle, like, don't have it go. Don't have a cloud service attached to it. It doesn't need to be on the network. It's like, sure. I mean, if you find a cool widget you want to sell and put your logo on, great. But when you create a risk that gets worse over time, we're gonna have a problem. And that's the thing, is like, from our side, we're a company that's not like, we're not owned by an integrator, we're not owned by manufacturers. Like, I come from a consulting background, but I was doing service design, and that's one of the things that we help with, is to say, hey, we don't just do service, but we also kind of advise you. Like, if you're considering something, we'll kind of whisper and go, maybe not. Maybe not. Our experience says, and that's the other thing, is we can bring maturity, and that's another piece. Like, I think when people are talking about managed services, they're so focused on the break fix aspect of it, they forget that, probably, 50% of our work is just documenting things, changing passwords, making sure that we're ready to take action if something happens. And it also is time to analyze data. We look at that stuff going on, and I can say over a 2 to 3 year period whether the failure rate of a device. And I can say, hey, you have a new design standard coming out. Maybe you should swap this device out. It has not been good. Or we've had really slow response times or repair times from devices. That's where we can start impacting customers, is by being that sane voice and saying, hey, there's 50 different versions of this. 2 of them meet sanity standards for security. Let's go there.
And I think that's the story. Right. Yeah. And we've had conversations with manufacturers like, the status is cool. I'm not paying for that.
No,
that's not something I'm willing to pay for.
But the light's green, Mark, right, and that one over there is red. So go look at it.
I expect it for free, like everybody else can offer it right now. It's what we're doing with the data after the fact? Are we making these informed decisions? Are we able to forecast what we should be doing based on this integration and like bringing us up? Okay, we've had these many failures, the tickets, how we mine that data. And it's important to capture it the correct way and aligning it. A lot of this is how you align that data to be able to parse that later on to make this decision, which is sure as hell doesn't sound like AV to me. It sounds like data research, right? And so here we are. Like, how do we get it? How do you get over that hill? And I think it's an occupational identity conversation too. Like, you could go and build all this on-prem, do it all yourself, but at some point you're going to get burned out. You're going to find yourself sitting in spreadsheets and all this data stuff trying to do all this. So there's value, right? How can you quickly make sense of all this data noise so that you can make actionable choices moving forward? And like, that's probably not the conversation people tiptoe into. They think, I just need to make sure this shit's running all the time, so then people show up and it just works, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah, and that's the proactive part of it. Is like, what, proactivity isn't just monitoring. It's making planning for the future and figuring that out, because we can't just be and that's that thing of we started this company trying to kind of change the way our employees work in service as well. Like, I don't know how many techs have. They sit down and start to lean in to take a bite of a sandwich, and then their phone goes off, and then they get up and walk away. Like, that's not okay. Unless it's a high priority issue, finish your lunch, go check it out.
It's a high priority to the customers, but yes.
That's why we always, we usually put in, there's a urgency, and it's this little drop down field where you can select urgency, and it's really just an emotional marker to tell us how upset someone is. But we set the priority based on a formula. Most things are priority 3 or priority 4 because it's one room and you've got a bunch of them. So the response was like, I don't have to acknowledge you for 2 or 3 hours on the low end. Not that I don't want to, but it gives us the freedom to say, if I'm in the middle of something and a ticket comes in, I don't lose my mind and start getting pulled in 2 directions at once. We go through things in a way that makes sense. And we've made this agreement ahead of time before everyone was upset at the moment and go, hey, this is what you paid for. We don't save meetings. If you want to save a meeting, you have a redundant room in a redundant building with a redundant power and network. And you'll still probably, it'll still get hit by a tornado and both of them will go out. So we just don't promise that. We don't promise to save things because it's not reasonable to ask people for that. If you had a call coming up that was so important, give me a couple of days to do test calls with you and with the customer and to check out the gear in the room. Like, there is another side of it. It's not all just on us.
You're telling me you're not offering event insurance? I want to know 100% that my meeting is going to work at all times, Colin.
Yeah, and I think that's where the pricing comes from, where people get kind of freaked out by pricing. Is like, I think a lot of people that are doing break fix, they're trying to respond to that level of urgency. Like, you want broadcast grade where a TV, the video wall breaks and it's up by the time the commercial is over. They're paying so much money for that, and you're not.
Have
and
you
you're
ever
not
seen
willing
SLAs?
But in higher ed, we do. Like, in higher ed, if there's a class, that's a high priority regardless, because it's
hundreds of dollars
on the class
every minute that goes by,
and how many students are affected. Right. Right.
That's why you have the emergency bullhorn in the podium.
You're not wrong. I mean, there are certain classes that the perception is they're more important if they fail. It has the higher impact. Yeah. So there is an SLA that does exist. Like, how are you going to respond with resources?
Yeah. Even locally, we do. And if it's 10 or 20, we say we'll go across the hall. And if it's the 500 seat auditorium, we're like, well, okay,
this is
we'll
a game that
we
actually play in our 3-day course that we teach at Avixa, where we say the what if game. Right? What if this happens and we stretch everybody's resources? Because you always have a couple groups that like, we can handle everything no matter what happens. Then you get to the what if your building falls over, where you're going to have your meeting because of the tornado hit. Well, we're not worried about meetings now, Justin, because the tornado took all of us out and we're all dead. I was like, exactly.
Yeah. All right, the network is down.
Then it doesn't matter.
Not my problem. I'm going to sit here till it comes back up. And to that
approach of support and maintenance.
And that is the realistic aspect to it. I mean, if I have an IT group that's running well, I can put, badge scanned lockers with fresh laptops, phones, and everything else you could imagine. And if someone has a problem, I can go to locker number 2, scan it, take it out, shove it in. Now you're back on O365. I got you back up and running. Nobody has to, desktop support does not exist anymore if you're doing it right. AV still has that. And you're in a unique position because, most corporations have so many rooms that if someone has a problem, they just move over to a different room. You don't have that same
sometimes do
ability.
Like there's
sometimes, like a smaller class
across the hall that's empty. Can we go in there?
Quieter
Like,
time.
I don't know. Like, yeah, go for it. We don't hold IT doesn't hold the schedule for that room, but go talk to your,
And that's that tier. And I think that, where we come in, we don't really do the full on-site army running around, but what we do work on is, okay, what can we do to ensure at a reasonable level that these systems will be working when you walk in? And that includes doing good preventative maintenance that isn't just go wipe down the fingerprints and test the cable. That's go in and see if this device is throwing a bunch of weird log entries in that you might be concerned about. Go in and check and see what the historic temperature of it is. Go in and make sure that the credentials are still valid and you can get into it if you need to. Like that kind of work is what we consider preventative maintenance. We can do a lot of that remotely. If we have access to it. We get back into the security problem. Like this is a very big circular issue. And that way, meeting support then becomes something that's just off the wall, like a TV just burns out. Yeah. And there's nothing we could have done about that. Right?
So, Colin, question for you in the general process here.
Yeah.
We're all at universities, and most people listening and watching are university people or somehow related.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Where does I don't know if you've done university support or agreements with your organization, but I mean, where would that fit in our structure? I mean, we've got the boots on the ground who can run around and do that initial, help people reboot things and bring stuff back up, whatever. Then there's we have our own internal tier 2, tier 3 people, but at a certain point we're going to want to escalate or want to get more information or get additional information from monitoring. Or how would that fit in our general support stack? And every university being different, but enough about them as how they're structured. So.
Yeah, I think, if we talk about ourselves as sort of a tier 2 org, your tier 1 then becomes those people that are boots on the ground that are technically able to go into the rooms but probably aren't maybe, repair techs. They're not going to do they're not going to reprogram a QSC or anything like that. Where we like to sit, especially if you have folks internally, which a lot of you do, that's a common thing is there's an AV team. We deal with corporations where they're like, we want it fully outsourced. And they just go, there's one manager. The manager is there to oversee vendors. They're a vendor manager. Everything is vendor driven. You have people internally, and what we can do is help take the load off of you so that you can focus on what you know best. You know these systems. You probably designed and put them in and programmed them. Do you really need to be spending time tracking RMAs, looking at monitoring data, checking SLA status, creating QVRs, doing preventative maintenance, doing test calls, all of that? And that's that thing where we talked about where we kind of go bottom up and we make sure that we strip out all that work that's very repeatable, documentable, something that we can do on a consistent basis to ensure you're successful. So that way when that call comes in, you're not buried under busy work. That's what we do. We do advanced work too. We have technical people, we have vendor management under us, we deal with manufacturers. There's a lot that goes into it, but it ensures that you're able to respond without a lot on your plate and to focus on what's really there. And that's that thing we talk to is say, hey, we let people that are internal to an org move upwards instead of digging down into the weeds. We sit in the weeds, we maintain them, we water and make sure they grow.
You gotta live in those weeds, man. Somebody's got to.
I've got a hypothetical question here. So,
yes,
what if someone owned a small integration business, and let's say that someone may or may not need a company like
talking
yours
about Larry
to actually
answer
the first phone call from the client, because our company has the programming higher end support to be able to do some
this hypothetical
things.
Company, Justin.
Hypothetical company.
Yes.
Theoretically, yes.
So what does that look like for you all? I know it's getting into like this. You don't want to be a level 1 help desk, but most of our phone calls are that level 2 because our systems are fairly sound and we've trained our clients well.
Yeah.
So when there's a problem, it's either very much a user error that's like a 5-minute phone call, or it's this is a bigger problem that we're going to have to be on site to deal with anyway. Does there a company that does that, or do you do that, or?
I mean, so we have some the way we deal with integrators is sort of two tiers. There's the ones who are really hands off, where they're like, call us when there's a problem. And so we coordinate with them as though we're calling, a third party to come in. There's other ones that we work with where we have a tenant. So within our ticketing system, we can create roles that create tenants. And so when they log in, so I create a tier, I put them in as our tier 2 internally. So we have our own tiers inside. So we're tier 1, we have some tier 2, now they're tier 2. And we create this siloed world where they see their customers' assets, their customers' alerts. We give them logins to our knowledge base so that all of the passwords, configuration files, everything is there. We take all of those first responses in, all the monitoring in, we work them. And then if we need to escalate them within the platform, we just assign it to them because they're already in there and they're already working with us like a partner. That works well. And we found that works really well because it trains customers to quit calling people on their cell phone. Which is like if you're in a small integration business, that will destroy you. You will burn out getting a call.
It's just gone.
I'm worried about that as our systems get older. We've been in business for 15 years or so. We don't get a lot of support calls, maybe 1 or 2 every 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
But they seem to come in rashes where we'll get 5 in 1 week and then we won't get another phone call for 3 or 4 months just because of whatever. So it does eat at our resources. What does that pricing model look like? So would it be like ad hoc or is it just retainer type stuff?
That's the thing is like, that's that whole discussion of like, what do you do with a customer? Are they a customer? If they're not paying you, do they have the privilege of calling you to get help? Because if it's yes, then what incentive do they have to sign anything? If they'll just call and you'll just show up. But that's where we incentivize. We say there's SLAs in place. I mean, we have guaranteed response times. We have agreements as to how long it'll take to get to site. Where that, I think where that works is, what we found is that, most customers, when we first onboard them, we don't get much of anything. We have that same experience where like something weird will happen, we'll get something and it'll be months. But as they learn that we're responsive and that it's easy, like they can go to the portal, put in a ticket, it takes, it's subject, what's wrong, hit send, done. It's easy. We can integrate into chat, things like that. Once, that's the thing. Like once you make it easy, you start to get more issues coming in. Mm-hmm. And a lot of customers are just sitting out there trying to fix their own stuff because they don't want to
don't have time.
Or they live with a subpar experience because they don't want to spend the money on that. But that's sort of the beauty of saying, hey, here's a monthly cost. It's sort of all you can consume. Maybe they get a couple of service visits a month and it's more after that, but it generally should cover them. And so they go, oh, okay, well, I can start taking care of some of these issues I've had. Or when there's a problem, I go, it's like, it's like healthcare. Like if healthcare costs you nothing, if you knew you could walk in the doctor
more often,
at any time and not pay a cent, you would go. Yeah, you would go. You would check your health. You would figure out what that thing is on your arm, and check it out. But if it costs money, you're gonna let it go until it's.
I like how you said arm there,
and that's where you get those calls.
Very specific in saying arm. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. No, there's nothing there. It's fine. I'm going to be fine.
Today.
No, but that's today for now. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like if you enable a good experience and you enable an experience where they feel like you care, then they're more willing to talk to you. And that the other part of this that we don't talk about as much, we kind of get into as we go, is that's where all the opportunities come from. That's how you learn about they need a new room, they need a new device. This whole set of products is going to end of life, end of support. There's a new building coming up, and that's what we're not integrators, so we just hand that off to whoever our partner is when that happens. But, that's that sort of daily connectivity. And as that happens, like no one feels weird about that. No one, no customer is upset that you're responding to their needs as they come up.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for that sales guy to roll in once a month and buy him chicken tenders and ask him what's wrong, we keep a running log of what's going on. We understand and we can make recommendations to say, hey, we've noticed that this room consistently has issues. Why don't you go do something about it?
And it feels like there still is a maturity curve here. right?
Sure.
Is that
absolutely.
Your organization that's seeking this type of value, you're going to have to be somewhere on that Gartner maturity curve. Like you can't just be in full-time firefighter mode all the time, right? And you may be.
No,
right?
you can't.
Right? You need to understand like SLAs and understand this data side. If you're not there and that stuff means nothing to you, you could value this service, but you're probably not there to understand fully what it's going to bring to the table for you. And I think going back to the first question I asked, how tall do I need to be to ride this ride? That's kind of what I'm getting at. This is going to be more beneficial. I mean, arguably you could say it's beneficial to everybody, but people that want to get that level of value, you probably need to be able to understand what that means to your organization. And if you're not there at the IT level, where do you go? Like you're kind of doing it yourself. And I think everybody's trying to do all of this service right now. Like everybody's designing around that. And I think it's, it's good to keep those things in mind, even if you're not at a level where you could farm all the stuff out and make that level of commitment outside. But you went through a lot of best practices, and it was good to hear you say a lot of these things, because I think everybody should be striving to do that in their designs and understand what their systems do in the name of this type of support model. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, designing for support is something that's just not done enough, because that's not really there. And like we've tried, like one of our big things is like, even if you don't use us to do design standards, at least bring us to the table as you go through design, because I'm more than happy to raise my hand. It's like, no, I don't want that product in here. Or yeah, that's a good idea. We trust them. It's like, cause half the time it's apples to apples with that. It's like, I don't know, if you don't like Wattbox, go get a Middle Atlantic, whatever, go get Raritan. I don't care. There's a few devices where I will definitely care if you spec them. We're gonna have a problem. But for the most part, I'm fine. But I'm there. We're willing to say, hey, we have a preference, and it'll make things more streamlined, or here's some features. But yeah, to that extent, it's like designing for support is just sort of, I don't know, like you get your money on the front end and hope it doesn't cost you too much later.
Support is like one of the prime key elements I have to focus on at WKU, because I get all the installers and programmers and support people. Yeah. Why'd you spec this? Why'd you do that? Why'd you do this? And you get a lot of heat whenever you open yourself up to that feedback, and you kind of learn what works and what doesn't. So
yeah.
Cool. Well, Chris.
Well, to that end, I think we've got the perfect product to solve so many of these issues. And let's hear about that right now.
Are you tired of juggling between multiple screens and consoles just to get a grasp of your digital empire and keep an eye on all your AV devices? Introducing the game changer you've been waiting for, the All-in-One Console by Independent Amalgamated. A single pane of glass that watches over all your platforms, collating reports and usage details with the precision of a digital maestro. But here's the kicker. It's not some fancy AI doing the heavy lifting. This is AL. That's right, a man named Al.
That's right, folks. I'm Al, your digital sidekick. I manually sift through the data, crunch those numbers, and serve you with the juiciest insights on a silver platter.
With the All-in-One Console, bid farewell to the days of drowning in a sea of screens. Al here ensures you've got everything you need right at your fingertips. Worried about compatibility issues? Fear not. Al's got your back, seamlessly integrating with all your existing platforms.
Whether it's device uptime, routed signals, network traffic, or meeting schedules, I've got it covered.
So why waste time wrestling with multiple consoles when you can have the simplicity and efficiency of the All-in-One Console? Upgrade your digital game today. Visit our website now and let Al be your digital guru. Independent Amalgamated's All-in-One Console. Simplifying complexity, Al at once.
Colin, that platform is available if you want to take care.
Does the single pane of glass roll up? That's what I need
to know. It does now. It does.
Okay, great.
The newest version, it deploys from the ceiling and comes down.
That has to be the dumbest commercial we've ever made, I think.
You hate that commercial. Every time we run it,
All-in-One. Because it's good. It's good. I like it.
The All-in-One. Yeah.
Al's great. He's a good dude.
Al's great.
He's busy. And we have like most of the leading institutions have signed up at this point in time. So if you believe you're a leading institution, you're probably hooked in there.
So we're a reseller actually. So glad to be here.
It's a game changer. I mean, it scales. I mean, we have an army of Als at this point. It's amazing.
So for our next topic, we wanted to bring this up, and it's something that's it's somewhat unique to any campus structure. That spaces end up with names, and they end up with names that aren't real. And at a certain point, we have
real.
Not to anybody who cares. At a certain point, we end up with dozens, hundreds, maybe over 1,000 of these potential locations, and they all have their favorite little colloquial pet names that no one knows what that means.
But let's have this conversation through the support lens. I think that's where
yes, because that's
weird.
where it comes up.
Yes,
so because in Colin's world, it's going to be, hey, we are having a problem with the XYZ building room 107. But the person who calls in says we're in the Mitchell room. You're like, what the heck is the Mitchell room? I don't know what that means. So
colloquial DNS names for spaces. Why?
Yeah, because no one wants to hear go to the door jam, read that code out, and then we're gonna head into the CMMS.
Just outside the door, there's 3 digits on the wall.
It's gonna
what
have
are those
number.
3 digits?
The numbers that we're looking for here.
The ones that really suck is where that's kind of hidden, and the colloquial name is the name.
Oh, where they've got a fancy plaque on the wall, sort of thing?
So, and it's even in the registrar tags.
Here's
and
the
everything
secret
else.
to this: is go look at your network plate in the room. Because the network guys always label our guy.
That's got the IDF number.
Those don't actually mean anything.
Ours are spot on. If I look at that network plate, that room number is 100% what it is.
It's because you only have like one.
No, one what? One room on campus? What do you mean one what?
Well, one network, Jack.
Network check.
Like this is the network for that room.
No.
It's always really interesting because these colloquial names, whatever they're always whoever the biggest donor was at the time got their name.
Sometimes it's a previous donor, which is interesting too.
Oh, I love it when it's like the 1950s donor. And
yes.
Doesn't exist anymore.
Some weird ones. But when you end up working with like a building manager or something from it, and they get heated when you don't refer to it as that, like, no, this is the Johnson J. blah 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 memorial room of it. It's like, it's room 122. Like, what are you talking about? It's like
asking an old New Yorker what the train lines are called, and you'll get some. You'll get some
Have you ever
anger
responded to someone?
See, we actually have the opposite problem where we have one big donor who donated
everything,
several buildings.
The Johnson.
They're all the same.
We've got Northmore, we got more Residence Hall, we've got more Humanities and Research, and they all have a room 101. And so I'm in more 101.
Is there a less room 101 somewhere, maybe?
That was his first name, Les Moore.
Les Moore. It's a conspiracy by big, small to have more or less, as they say. No, the practical answer here is, we can have an infinite number of notes and information. We do our asset structure because, most IT asset, you have users and those users have some stuff. So I can go in and see my stuff. I can pull up a user and I can see you've got 2 phones, a tablet, and a laptop, and that's pretty easy. Here, the users are usually rooms. So rooms is the high level, and then they all have children. That's the stuff in them. So one of 2 things can happen. Like if there's a colloquial name, we make sure it's in there. And when I search for the asset, it shows up. The other thing you can do is use a QR code. Stick the name of it on there. Have a deep link that goes into your ticketing platform, and they scan it and say, "Hi, I'm in here."
I thought you wanted them to explain the QR code over the phone. Okay, it's the square. There's some black.
They just start screaming like a modem into the phone, trying to explain
on QR codes.
Yeah, they're risky in their own regard.
I've been putting my personal Venmo up as QR codes. It's great.
Bitcoin address up
I
there.
make hundreds of bucks a day.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, you put them up at the front of the gas station.
Address.
Need support? Scan this.
Yeah, I was like, why is it charging me $5? It's like, well,
by the way, speaking of stickers and signage, just as an aside, we keep finding, this was years ago, this was 10, 12 years ago, whatever. Somebody put the helpful little stickers on all the lecterns and credenzas and whatnot that said, if you need help, call this, here's the help desk number.
Cell phone number.
Under every single one below it, they put, tell them you need help immediately. And I thought, why is that on there? No one calls for support next Tuesday. They're calling
have
for
you
support
walked in when, like, and your business card is taped to the lectern. It says, if you need help, call this. I've been in rooms where my business card has been scanned and it's now a full size sheet and taped to the front on the lectern. It says, if you need help, call this. And it's like, well, that's not how this works.
When your equipment gets refreshed, does the integrator just put a new plate over the old one? Yes. Every time? Are they like stacked up like
yes, I find those
like registration stickers on
the old one gets thrown in the back of the rack, and you can see how many integrators have been there over the years based on how many
their initials on it.
Plates on
I've never seen that.
Yeah. And Chris has been like, well, I'm not hiring this one.
That's the list
and
of
I'm
do
not
not
hiring
call.
this one.
That's right.
So it's always funny because we always have those that people are just adamant about referring to the rooms as like, no, I'm in this room, and it's like,
I like it when buildings are just built. And they have the donor rooms and the insistence upon this is going to be what we're going to call it forever.
We have it going on now when like new donors come in. It's like, no. Even when you refer to this building, you must this long string. It's like, I can't even pronounce that stuff. And I have a bad last name to be pronouncing in the first place.
That happened recently on an existing building. It was the anthropology building, and for years it was the anthropology building. And they just recently named it after a former professor. And so now I can't remember the guy's name. But they will call and tell you they're in that building. I'm like, that's not a building, and there's no way for me to find that. And I'm going to try to tell a student on Teams to go to this building that doesn't exist just because you guys put the sign up yesterday. It's like, I get it. This is a big deal to you internally. I'm coming over to room 150. So, yeah, cool it.
Exactly.
I get it. I don't know why donors need to name buildings after themselves. Like you can.
It'd be better for them to name them after other people. That'd be fun.
You can name it anything. Like have fun with it. Like you're the one who paid for it. So
I've been naming every building that I donate to get naming rights. I name the anthropology building, regardless of what it is,
regardless of the discipline. That's what it is.
No, that's a capital A on that one. That you're talking about the lowercase anthropology building. No confusion.
I've always wanted to be like, if I get rich and build a building, it's going to be like, F that guy. F Colin. Well, we're not going to put that on the side of this.
You will for $1 billion.
I'll just keep adding zeros until you do. Everyone has a price.
F that guy.
I did want to mention
Stanford blows, that kind of
Stanford.
Larry brought it up. I have two buildings with identical names. They have a full formal name that is not the same, but they're both colloquially referred to as the Rochelle Center. And it doesn't help when they call from that because there's two buildings with the exact same name. So thank you. And then when they get confused when you call them on it, because the groups are these are groups, they don't talk. They're completely separate departments. They have no idea the other exists. And so when you ask which one, they get all like, well, no, it's the only one. Like, it's not. There's another one with the same name. So.
It's cool when buildings change names. You have a lot of that, where like a new donor steps up and outbids it. No, this is it. And I still like to refer to it to the old name always. And they're like, whoa.
Because we're always trying to find that free money. Hey, we need.
This is not a technical problem. Like this is a problem that can be solved by people who understand human behavior, going and figuring out what's wrong, because and like you're at universities, don't you have those people to go?
This is a self-imposed problem. We like
put
this
them in
problem,
a room. Yeah, put them in a room until they figure it out.
I can't handle your stupid problems. That's a you problem, not a me problem. Like I can't.
This is a money problem.
Yeah, this is a tier 3 issue, and we don't have it.
Well, if you read the fine print of the contract,
outside of this SLA.
You just got charged.
Clause 14 says. No.
On the other hand, Colin, this is a perfect opportunity for your organization to maybe offer this as a service of building and room translation, depending on where people are coming. So, which room do you think you're in? Let's look it up on a map and help you.
Truth tables. Are you to the north or the south?
Yeah, we
Can you see the highway from the windows? Because if not,
Yeah. Tier 1 will just be staffed with therapists. Will be like, where do you think you are right now? Is it important for you to be there right now? How does it make you feel being in that room? And then they'll forget why they're calling.
End of the day, they're just crying.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well,
service with a smile or something.
So, Colin, if people want to reach out to you, they want to get in touch with you, they want to talk to you more about these and pick your brain on some stuff, where are they going? Where are we sending them? How are they getting in touch with you?
I mean, you can go to av-msp.com because I didn't get the cool one. You can find me on LinkedIn at Colin Birney. We're on Blue Sky at the same av-msp.com because you can have a URL as your handle on there, and you definitely should. So that's the easiest way. Or you can just email me, Colin at avmsp.com. I'm easy to find because I talk too much.
Well, it's a perfect medium for you, sir.
Yes.
Well, thanks for coming on and talking us through this. I think it's definitely an interesting play and probably has a place for a lot of organizations, a lot of schools, and is something that would be a potential benefit, or even something worth just exploring to see how that would fit within those support structures and what sort of things that can kind of take off their plate. So very cool.
Yeah, I'm always happy to chat. I do sales because I'm part owner of the company, but I'm not good at sales. I'll talk to you for 2 hours and go, well, have a good day. And that's
I forgot to say
I forgot to say who I was. It honestly, a lot of customers buy me meals because I invite them to dinner and we sit and talk, and they feel bad because I wasn't selling very hard, and they're like,
"This guy's not making any money. I better cover this for him."
Oh boy, he felt. Do you need 100 for rent or something?
Oh, God.
No, we're good, but it's just part of the thing. It's like I want the industry to be better. I really do, and so I'm always happy to talk to say how can we make it better.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks.
We'll figure it out.
Thank you all.
Well, we've managed to ruin yet another episode of AV Super Friends Off the Rails. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com. If you complain loud enough, we might just invite you on the show.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV Super Friends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.
I don't know how that
you went live. Welcome in, nobody.
I don't understand how this shit changes every time we do this. Why is this happening? And why do I hear myself?
You're supposed to hear yourself.
After I talk, I hear myself like an echo.
All right. Well, this is good for everybody.
I hear myself, and then I hear myself again.
This is a special edition.
Oh, this is glorious.
I could help you, but you don't have a contract with my company right now, so I'll send some stuff over. We can get you onboarded by next week.
I don't have a contract with my company right now.
Oh, no.
People are coming
1, 2,
in. This is
3,
you're
4.
all getting like behind the scenes because we talk about it so much. We went live today, so you all can see it.
We just figured why not.
Does that move when I do this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what you're doing.
That does, yeah. So that does that.
This is how it goes, everybody. Welcome to the show.
So, do I still sound like shit?
Are you talking about you or the microphone?
Yeah. Do I still sound like shit?
You sound better than you did a minute ago.
Yes, you're good.
We're improving.
All right.
But you're hearing yourself on delay.
Are you still getting slapped back?
Yep.
I don't know. I hear you all. I just don't hear me.
That's okay.
Which I'm fine with. I don't care. Why is this shit doing this?
Yeah.
All right. You guys ready to go live?
Too late.
It's too late now.
I vote no, but here we are.
Wait, my mic is muted. Why was my mic muted?
I was just sparing everybody here.
I thought this was why we're on.
We are live troubleshooting with AV Super Friends.
To laugh and figure out why.
Letting everybody come in, and then we're going to do it. So
I'm just buying the interfaces that you all recommend, and now this is all the shit that I got to deal with.
I've had the same interface for 5 years. I don't know how.
All right.
I've been through 4 interfaces.
I use Scarlett, and they're, rock solid. So
yeah, that's why Scarlett 2.
Bernie,
yep.
I'm going to buy a Scarlett next. That's what
I have one. I'll give you.
Cool.
Send it over.
They're beautiful. They have a nice big knob. It's hard to mess up.
It's fine. I'm just going to muck with it on the show.
It's fine.
It should be.
Well, where are we getting the echo? Is that coming back just from Justin, or is that everybody?
I'm getting a slight echo when you talk.
Usually that's Mark's headphones.
Check 1, 2. See, the echo's gone away now. It's gone.
Yeah, you're feeding it back to us.
Yeah.
Is it me? No, I don't think so.
Exclusive. Right. Exclusive for you all today. You're welcome.
I gotta work on my headphones.
Okay, well, I'll just start applying effects then.
Yeah, don't mess with me on this.
We'll just do it this way. It sounds fine. No one will notice.
Is that how I sounded? I bet I sounded a little bit like that.
You were worse than this.
Worse? Yeah. Oh, we're going to do the intro now?
We're going to do this whole show.
Is that what we're doing?
Show
like we already went live, right? Are we on the tubes yet?
I see it.
Oh, yeah.
I've got it over here.
People on tubes right now.
Vein.
Okay.
Mark, do you want to do that story we brought up the other day? I don't know if we found a better one.
Phones.
Okay.
Let's see.
Chris, just talk again real quick.
What?
I literally touched no knobbers, so it ain't me, and I'm not touching
it ain't
anything.
You, but you're
coming back because you're picking me up through Justin and firing it back.
Okay, as long as it's through Justin, it's all good.
Nothing you guys say is going to make me change any settings because it's fine. But alrighty, well, Jamie, give me a card. We'll just do this like it never happened.